this morning to bring to you the word of Jesus Christ this morning for a brand new year. Today I want to talk about what is God's plan for you. Well, following a Christmas concert, a student asked her teacher, "What does pet the ham mean?" The teacher kind of looked a little puzzled, and she said, "I have no idea." And you can see this child, she's getting really frustrated. She's like, "You know, we sang it. I heard them sing it. I heard them sing it." And she goes, "Well, I really don't know what you're talking about, but why don't you sing a little bit of it for me?" So she sings, "Follow that star, follow that star, follow that star to pet the ham." It's funny what kids say, right? Well, here's the thing. Are you following the star to Bethlehem, or are you following some other kind of star in your life? Are you, if you are following the star, are you doing it for the right reasons as well? Well, this morning, again, we're going to look at what God's plan is for you. The story of Christmas and the wise men, basically, they revealed this to us, and they give us that answer. It is the welcoming of the most precious gift that God has given us, and that is humanity. The gift is us. The gift is the fact that we are more valuable than anything else, especially to God. And He cherishes us, and He wants us to cherish our life. He wants us to live it to the fullest. He wants us to develop our human capabilities and, of course, become the incarnate gospel of Jesus Christ through love and peace and joy and justice and truth. We try, though. We try to follow God's plan, or at least what we think is God's plan, right? We try to fulfill all of our needs. We try to take care of our health insurance and health care, and, of course, our education and food and clothing, all of those things. But at the end, what we really end up doing is becoming anxious about all of it, and, of course, we usually don't find happiness within any of it. We seem to come up short, it seems like. We recognize that God has a plan for us, but then the reality is we have to actually live it out. And we need to recognize our human value, and we need to recognize and joyfully embrace being a child of God. As I thought about this morning, I wanted to share with you the fact that I did try to take my family on a vacation during the past week. And I'm looking at taking some time this coming week to be with my family. I tried different travel itineraries. I kept saying, "Let's go here, let's go there." And they kept saying, "No, we can't do that. It costs too much money. It's too far. It's too dangerous." And I thought to myself, when did all of a sudden travel become so dangerous to the point that it's threatening? And I realized it was probably since 9/11. Now we have to, on a leap of faith, get into an airplane or a car or an automobile or a cruise ship, whatever the case may be. But over the past couple weeks, I've thought this through, and I realized that our travel has been more about when we go in and we think that the worst of it was in the past, I hope I don't lose my luggage. And now it's, I hope I don't lose my life. But today we look at a situation where we have a group of travelers who traveled with great peril, with hardship, with measures of time that passes. Today we can get across the United States of America. We can go from time zone to time zone in a matter of hours or days. But back then, back in the first century, back at the time of Jesus Christ, it took literally months and years to get from one place to another. And this is the story that I want to share with you from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. If you would like to turn with me in your pews or on your Palm Pilots or your phones. It's the visit of the wise men. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for it has been written by the prophet." This comes from Micah. "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler, who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called the wise men, and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I too may go and pay homage to him." When they had heard the king, they set out there, and ahead of them went the star that had been seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So we hear this story, these travelers, these men, these wise men in Matthew. They traveled long distance. They were marathon travelers. They traveled for years following a new star. Of course, these were learned astrologers. They were not only historical in the fact that they didn't understand the theology, but they knew that there was some historical value related behind this star. Of course, scientists today believe that perhaps the star was a comet, or maybe it was a supernova, or perhaps a planetary conjunction of two planets going in the same direction at the same time. We don't know all the details, we just heard them. But yet there's folklore that is behind these three men. Well, they say even three. There could have been more than three. And the timing of it all. But what we do know is that they were eager, and they were eager to not only follow that star, they were encouraged to do so. Even Herod was encouraging them, and the experts. But they have this dialogue, Herod and the wise men, and yet their paths were completely different. You see, the wise men, they were able to take their scriptural pronouncement from Micah and from Samuel as well, and find directions to this holy destination. It was in Matthew 2, verse 6. I'm going to share it again with you. "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." The wise men, they faithfully followed their course and obediently bowed down and paid homage to the child they found lying in his mother's arms. Their long-observed star became an active participant in this final stage of their journey. Moving steadily across the sky, they followed it to that place where Jesus lay. And then there's the path of Herod. I'd like to tell you his path was better, but it wasn't. It was darker, and it was full of self-destruction. It was a path where Herod vicariously wanted to journey through this time period with the wise men, but he didn't want to leave the comfort of his palace. He wanted to stay in his seat of power and authority because he felt threatened by it. He chose to wait, and as he waited, the Magi went on their journey. Of course, these two different paths are two different choices. One was a good choice, and one was a bad. The wise men warned in a dream that Herod would become self-destructive. They went home a different way. And then taking with them, they had the identity of knowledge of who Jesus Christ truly was. And then you've got Herod, Well, his path became madness, mayhem, and murder. And we've heard the stories of how Herod ordered the murder of the innocents and then threw himself down a path of self-destruction and insanity. Upon seeing the face of God, though, these wise men, these non-believers, these people who were faithful witnesses of the Son of God, we now have what we call Epiphany. It is their story of remembrance, and it is held annually in the church, and it allows us to literally recheck our spiritual compass. Taking a moment today to examine exactly what course in our lives we are on and what we are following. Many of us begin each year, as Jack mentioned, with New Year's resolutions. So many of us don't end up doing them as much as we'd like, and we looked at last year and I think, no, I did not lose the 50 pounds that I thought I was going to lose. But we do those things, and yet it's a tradition that has been going on for over 4,000 years. It has pagan roots, actually. But Epiphany is for Christians. And Epiphany Sunday gives us a time in our lives where we can reevaluate why we are Christians. There's a philosopher, his name is Dallas Willard. He's a modern day philosopher. And in the 1990s, he wrote a book called The Divine Conspiracy, an important Christian book, basically, in the fact that it defines the divine Christian conspiracy as God's plan to intervene in human history. The divine conspiracy calls us into a more authentic faith and offers a practical plan by which we can become Christ-like. It is a challenge for us to step aside from the politics and the polities and pieties of common contemporary Christian practice, and it inspires us to reject that all too common lukewarm faith of ours in times that we embrace truly the meaning of being a Christian disciple. When Willard, his students find out that he's not only a philosopher, but that he's also a Christian, they say, why? Why are you a Christian? You're a philosopher. And he says to them, who better to follow? You got somebody better in mind? I love that. See, he defines being a Christian as being a disciple of Jesus Christ. Who do you follow? Do you think and follow someone like Plato or Aristotle, those philosophers of old? Or perhaps you follow a politician or a musician or an athlete or a movie star? What star are you hitching your wagon to? Well, everyone needs to have some kind of wagon that they hitch their star to. For some reason, we all need something or someone. We just have to look today and determine what star we're going to follow. And it is my hope that by the end of today, if someone were to ask you, why are you a Christian? You'll say, who better to follow than Jesus Christ? But there are a lot of different reasons people follow any old star. A lot of times it's for fame and fortune. Sometimes it's for money, wealth, perhaps to reach for the gold or the frankincense and the myrrh. Great treasures, of course, great gifts, but they're not that star of Jesus. Herod sought his own star in order to try to preserve his own power. He followed that star, and this star led him to death and destruction. But for Christians, when we follow this star of Jesus Christ, that star leads us on the right path, the way, the truth, and the life. To follow that star of Jesus is calling us to a lived life, a five-pointed, five-dimensional life, a life filled with not only joy, but also living to their fullest capacity. I want you to think for a moment what it's like when you're a movie character and you're in a car chase. Now I want you to visualize this. You can close your eyes, these people won't, but don't fall asleep. All of a sudden, you're jumping into your car, this car, it's a taxi, it's parked on the side, you jump in the back seat and you point and say, follow that car, right? So you all know how that ends, right? Every time you ever see those car chases, you got smashed up cars, people jumping out of the way, you got walls being hit. It's just madness, it's mayhem. I've seen that commercial too, that guy Mayhem, that guy's crazy. But he's always running into cars and running into things, and it's just crashing. And then the next thing you know, these people, the passenger, the driver, they're following that car, and they have no idea whether or not they're ending up and where they're going to go, where their journey's going to end, and where it's going to take them. Well, gosh, you know what? Our lives are a lot like that taxi. We don't know what highway we're going to end up on, or back alley, or dead-end street. We don't know any of that. It's just part of our journey. And folks, when you follow that star, that is the kind of journey you're going to have. It's going to have twists and it's going to have turns. But there's something that's exciting about it that keeps us wanting to follow it. It's an alluring star. It's a star that the angels in heaven announced. It's the star that signaled the presence of a newborn king. It's the star that the wise man began to follow years before his birth. We follow that star because we begin the same journey, a lifelong, life-altering, life-consuming journey with Jesus Christ in it. That alluring star that caused the wise men to be identified and hitch themselves to a new path, a future. That kept on moving and guiding them on their way. But interesting enough, so many of these people who take these different journeys like the wise men, they all start in different places. I was born in Miami, Florida. I then moved to and lived in Coral Gables. I went on to Lakeland, Florida, went to the University of Florida in Gainesville, then back to South Miami, then to Winter Park, and then once again to Lakeland, and then as a young mom I went to Washington, D.C., Raleigh, North Carolina, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Wausau, which is also Tallahassee, and Monticello, it's kind of in between, and then right here in North Stuart. I traveled a lot, just like the wise men, and so have many of you. We didn't start off in the same place, but yet here we are today at 150 Canner Highway at First United Methodist Church in Stuart. Why? Because someone or something told us about a star and we decided to follow it here. Some of us started off maybe in a mansion, others started off in public housing. Some of us started in the warm arms of a loving family, others began in a barren childhood of absentee parents and outright rejection or abuse. Some of us started with a heritage of faith and a solid church family like yourselves, and others began without any spiritual direction whatsoever. Some of us started early in life seeking our faith with our family and fulfillment in our childhood, and others began later